Well, happy, beautiful, amazing day. Welcome to this edition of the Dr. Bob Rakowski Podcast. I've got Dr. Jenny Sechler here. I hope I pronounced that right. And what a fascinating journey. What a background. She was a nurse practitioner for over 20 years before she decided to become a chiropractor and focus on functional medicine. Let's just dive right in. Let's talk about, first of all, nursing. How did you get into that? What did you learn? And what led to your transition?
Wow. That's a lot of questions. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for the invite. I think my journey, I just wanted to help people to be healthy. That's kind of what started my journey on being a nurse, right? So I got in the hospitals, then went to emergency trauma centers, and I just love that chaos and learning about the human dynamics of people, what we just do to ourselves, what you do to other people. And the longer I spent there, I just got more interested in taking a deeper dive at really who we really are, right? What makes us tick? What makes the mind and body really go from a state of health to a state of disease? So on that journey, I just started asking more questions. I became very curious. And that's kind of led me to become somewhat disillusioned or disenchanted with the traditional medical model. Now, we need that model. It's excellent for a lot of things. But for a lot of other things, it's not doing us a very much service.
So let me just blend in my own background. I have a nurse's degree after my chiropractic degree, so we did it in different orders. The reason I got my nursing degree was because they keep stealing away from our license in chiropractic. And they said, okay, be a nurse practitioner, you'll extend your practice. But it wasn't until I worked as a nurse till the words, nothing is beneath my dignity to relieve human suffering, that you actually live that. And you know what, it's not for everybody. I promise you that. So I think nurses are, oh my God, some of just the angels that are serving humanity. But then you went into nurse practitioner, which is pretty advanced, or did you do that right away?
No, I was an ER nurse for about 15 years before I decided to, let's go ahead and learn some more. So I became dual certified as a geriatric nurse practitioner along with the family. I like that expansiveness of the different age groups. So I enjoyed that. But then I met this chiropractor and he just got me so interested in energy medicine and muscle testing and the ability of the self-healing ability of the body.
Who is that chiropractor?
He was a chiropractor up in Wisconsin. His name was Jay Fox, is Jay Fox.
Okay, beautiful.
And I just became mesmerized. I'm like, you can do that? The body can do that? It was fascinating. It really opened my eyes. I'm like, wait a minute, I got to be a part of this. I want to do this too now.
You know, I have plenty of students that have learned kinesiology, and they'll often say, bodies don't lie, people do. And so if you know how to communicate with the body and literally picture that every single diagnostic test is asking the body a question.
Is
You know,
there?
how much sugar is in your blood? How much cholesterol is in your blood? How much pressure is in your arteries? How strong is this muscle? You know, and by the way, do certain things affect the strength of that muscle, like the acupuncture channel or organ reflex points or even different nutraceuticals? And what have you found? What can potentially impact muscle strength, body balance, or how did you see this more natural approach
Hmm.
add to what you already knew?
Yeah, it's fascinating. I think every symptom to me is a conversation, right? And it's about learning how to have that conversation with your body. But we so often look the other way or shoot the messenger. I say we miss the conversation, right? So I remember I had this old client once, and every time her hip hurt, her right hip hurt, I would ask her, Sue, is there something you need to say to yourself or someone else? And she's like, oh. So that was kind of her body giving her, you need to say something or something you have to express to someone or yourself. She, oh, yeah, you're right. There isn't. So as soon as she do it, that hip pain would go away. So just one way the body is talking to her. So muscle testing is another way. It's just about learning those tools to communicating to the amazing wholeness within us.
Well, I like this idea of every symptom's a conversation. And let's talk about some of the more interesting symptoms you've seen. And maybe medicine would have done one thing, but you found something easy, like just like this, right? Maybe you need to share something with somebody. That might be a reach for some people, but I promise you, everything counts. If you're not having the conversations you need to have, it might be a stressor in your system that could be depleting you more than you know. So let's talk
Exactly.
about a few of these fun symptoms that actually came up as different conversations, and then we'll jump into the gut brain.
Okay. Wow. One that pops into my head right now is she was a very complex woman. Her daughter brought her into my functional medicine office. And sometimes I sit there think to myself, holy cow, there's so much going on. Where do you start? Right. And she had mentioned some things about not being able to sleep at night because she had such restless legs and jumpiness, and she couldn't ride in the car for more than an hour. It was just kind of a bizarre mixture of things going on. And one thing she did say, she's on a multitude of medications, but one thing I realized she was taking a lot of PPI type of things. And, you know, they serve a purpose for a short period of time, but they
Let's define it for our listeners. Proton pump inhibitors blocking stomach acid, which almost everybody's taking if they're under prescriptions. So go on.
Thank you, exactly, and then that blocks your protein, right? It produces a protein problem in your body, and so that's kinda what came to my instinct, so I just suggested, "Let's just try weaning off, decreasing it." Well, she just took off the night dose, and the next time she came in, she goes her daughter's like, "By the way, she's sleeping at night. She can ride in the car." And she was just straight-faced, wasn't even excited. And I'm like, Hold on a second. We're gonna take 60 seconds and we're gonna celebrate. This is amazing. The body, look at how that responded, right?"
Yeah. My mentors always said we can make the body better two ways. One, give it something it doesn't have that it really needs, or take away something that is poisoning it. And in that case, that PPI was poisoning it.
Yes.
And, absolutely beyond fascinating. Now, let's just suddenly jump into this gut brain connection. And for those that maybe not be well versed in that, is there a gut brain connection? What is it? And how can we optimize our gut and
Mhm.
brain?
Yeah, we know more than we used to know 10, 20 years ago, but we're still learning. We have so much more to learn. But I like John Hopkins, some of the researchers there have talked about that gut-brain connection. They're calling it that second brain right in the gut. But what kind of a strange concept for us humans to think about, I got this brain, but I got a brain in my gut? So I love that concept now in building that connection. We think about the butterflies in your stomach when we're nervous, right? Well, that's really talking to you, another conversation, right? That gut's trying to have with you, but we're so disconnected from that. So learning how to tap into that, I think, is one of the great challenges, mysteries, and fun things to do right now with clients.
Yeah, when we start talking about brain chemistry, for instance, most people don't realize that the vast majority of our brain chemistry is in our gut.
Exactly.
And so all of that serotonin, all that dopamine, all that GABA. So that means it's got to have some purpose in the rest of our body. And how about the microbiome? Is that important for anything?
Oh my gosh, fascinating, isn't it? So all the trillions of microbes we're finding, and we're learning so much about the purposes of some of them. I know we have so much more to learn, but it's fascinating to see what we've learned about anxiety, depression, weight gain. Some of the specific microbes are tied into some of those imbalances and some of those chronic conditions. So being able to test them and then target them with specific probiotics. And there's a lot of probiotics in the world today. Just take more and more. Well, it's not about more is not better, right? It's about really targeting specific microbes now, which is I love to do this, and then try to make those changes in the microbiome itself.
So let's just talk about the microbiome for a moment. We have more bugs in our gut than we have cells in our body.
Exactly.
Every bug eats, drinks, and goes to the bathroom. The difference between good bugs and bad is what they eat and what they poop. Good bugs eat poop and poop nutrients. Bad bugs eat nutrients, poop toxins. So there are areas of the world where their microbiome is much more diverse than what we see here. And you care to share what we know about the health of those individuals that have those diverse microbiomes?
Exactly. They're much healthier and they live longer, don't they?
And they don't have the same brain challenges.
Exactly. And that
Yeah.
their energy is better, their mental clarity is better. One of the big issues I think that's common in our society is food allergies and sensitivities. And unfortunately, the path that people go down is their diversity then decreases. They eat only a few foods, right? And that actually is hurting their diversity even more, right? They think they're doing a good thing, which I understand the concept, but in reality, their diversity is going down even farther, even harming their microbiome even more.
So what's when you tell your patients, all right, we know you're going to be reactive to foods. What's your approach to eliminate the reactions, yet keep or even increase the diversity?
Well, it's kind of multifold. If they can do, my philosophy is less is more. So I'm kind of one of the maybe more unusual providers that I don't think more is better. So the body just wants those frequencies. It wants a little bit of things. So I'll start out maybe like a third of a capsule of things. Let's introduce it. See how the body's responding to it. Maybe do it every other day. Just build up to those kinds of things. But the other side of this is I love to play with this is the whole then bring that mind connection in, right? So one of the people that I follow, I love Dr. Joe Dispenza's work. And I love one of his studies talked about this is meditation work. You can change your microbiome in 7 days. Fascinating.
Yeah, and meditation can do it, and exercise can do it, and diet can do it, and supplementation can do it, and supplementate, other different types of probiotics besides different supplementation. And so what's your favorite way to jump in? Do you like that meditation or what's your strategy?
I'll usually do phases. So like our first phase, I'll obviously do foods, right? And it's hard to take food away from people. We don't like things taken away from us. It's like, well, okay, let's see what you're eating, but maybe we can add in something like polyphenols, add the colors in. Or I say when I go to the grocery store, like I go once a week to Sprouts or Whole Foods, I'll try to pick out one thing of color that I haven't eaten in a long time or I've never eaten. Again, a good way to increase diversity, right, in your gut. So I suggest, okay, people like to add things more than take away. So like, okay, I can do that. So there's some food things. I'll do maybe a prebiotic or a probiotic of some kind that I like. And then I'll start to say, well, let's start looking at what you're thinking. Because if you're in fight or flight all the time, right, nothing's going to change. So I'll ask, are you eating, standing up? Are you watching the news? What are you doing? What's your environment when you're eating?
So the opposite of that, right? We know when people are stressed out, their digestion is nowhere near as effective. That actually promotes leaky gut rather than helping it. So how much of this food allergy thing is actually leaky gut as opposed to real allergies? What do you have a feel for that?
I do. I've kind of changed my tune over the years. I used to be so into the food allergy thing, and people might disagree with me on this, and that's okay. But what I'm learning is I think we give food too much power. And I know food's important, but I think it's more about it's not what we're taking in, it's how we're absorbing it or why we're not absorbing it. So this whole leaky gut thing, the whole poor diversity, our cortisol levels, all those things are impacting, right? How we're actually and what we're doing with all of these foods. So looking at it from all those angles, I even had a client once with an eating disorder and she weighed her food out specifically. Eating was a stress for her. It was a job. I'm like, let's see if we can make a shift in this. So I said, have you ever heard of instinctual eating? And she's like, no. I said, she goes, what is that? So we wake up in the morning and you ask your body, what would I like to eat today? And she said, well, what if I want to eat 5 candy bars? And I said, well, you won't, but if you want a candy bar, eat a candy bar. And so she adapted that. Let's try it for 4 weeks. And she loved it. It's completely changed her attitude about food.
Well, I do think far too many people stress over food. Interesting enough. And then there's the other extreme. People don't pay any attention at all. So we want to find that sweet spot.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so are you of the mindset, just in what I'm hearing, if people take better care of themselves, better care of their food environment, their preparation, even their personal state when they're eating, their food allergies can go away maybe as fast or faster
Yeah.
than if they took supplementations or made other choices.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's a very, very, very powerful statement because let's face it, if you are relaxed and at peace, every process in your body works better. So do you have a little maybe ritual that you help people go through that can get into that relaxed, peaceful state before they're eating?
Well, sometimes I'll say you have to be sitting down, right? If you're going to eat something, you got to sit down. And I tell them if their family or members or something are being really negative, ask them to stop talking. You're going to eat in silence, right? You're just going to sit there. And then I want them obviously to chew your food several times, but to really taste your food. When you put your fork in your mouth, really stop for a second and really, what does it really smell like? What does it really taste like? Right? That'll help your absorption, but it helps you to be more present, right? To everything that you're doing. With express some gratitude either before your meal, during the meal, or afterwards. So I think those little things can make a big impact for people.
And that goes back millennia. I often tell people I did a fire walk with an Indian chief about 3 decades ago, and they would talk about how the Indians would get thanks for everything. And mean literally everything. So as we were setting this fire, we were giving thanks for the fire and all the bonding that was gonna happen, but they'd talk about the buffalo, and they'd use absolutely every bit of it. And wouldn't it be nice if we had that relationship where we knew that everything was connected? And you know what? It's just a sequence of life where food is supposed to nourish us, and then we're supposed to use that to go ahead and nourish the world.
Exactly. Let's talk about the hunters and gatherers, right? How they ate seasonally, right? But we have so much offered to us all the time that we really don't eat like that. So there's some pattern differences there, but I think we could be a little more adaptive to that also.
When you talked about going to, your good stores like Sprouts and, looking for something you hadn't eaten, I was once taught that people repeat their diet about every 4 days. That is the US average. So picture if we just told people you couldn't eat the same thing for 3 weeks, 21 days.
Right.
They would what would they do? They'd 5x their dietary choices if
Exactly.
they would just do that one time, and that would give them the microbiome diversity that they were looking for.
Yeah, exactly. That's a huge challenge. We get so into our patterns, right? We get so busy that we just pull out the same things we're always eating.
So let's talk about a few conditions, a few maybe brain conditions, people coming thinking and it's a brain condition, but it was the gut that resolved it. What demographic do you want to start? What condition do you want to start? Any
Oh, wow.
favorites?
Well, let's see. I think about a couple of them that I've just worked with last week. One was more of just fatigue and just kind of general brain fog, right? And I think one of the things I'm seeing more and more, I'm doing some gut consulting right now, and some of the patterns I'm seeing is that gets forgotten is our bile.
Mm.
And for whatever reason, I like to talk about gallbladders and bile because it gets forgotten. We talk about detoxing, right?
Don't step back because we have a society where they rip out gallbladders like they're completely insignificant.
Exactly. Exactly.
So share, what do you teach your patients about their gallbladder?
Yeah, it's funny because I used to work with people who didn't have gallbladders. I could just tell after so many years. Because first of all, I get it. They're removed because they have a symptom, and that symptom is relieved after that's gone. So, and the mind is thinking, well, my problem is solved, right? But then it takes years to really develop other seemingly unrelated issues that usually is tied back to this missing gallbladder and bile. You think about detoxification, right? Phase one and phase two, all great. But that phase two, which no one talks about or really talked about, is that transport. That's what the bile is transporting out of the body. So
Well,
we're missing it.
I want to come back to that in just a moment. We're going to take a moment and go to our sponsor, bettercoffeeshop.com, the world's best organic coffee, guilt-free, turbocharged, certified clean, reishi infused, bettercoffeeshop.com. Go log in, take your one box challenge today. All right, so we're talking about detoxification and how important the bile is for detoxification. Remember that the gallbladder is essentially just an extension of the liver. It stores and concentrates bile for people that are getting a little anatomy lesson. So once it's removed, how does that impact their detoxification? How does it impact their digestion?
Exactly. So that transport system then is either shut down, so it's gonna things are gonna come back in the system and absorb somewhere else, giving you more symptoms, or you're actually gonna get out of your body, right? Well, people don't think about it too. It affects your hormones. So perimenopausal women, right? Menopausal women, that is impact. What in the world does that have to do with my gallbladder and my bile, right? Well, it does, right? That liver has to process breaking all those hormones, so everything again is so connected. That's another big piece.
Well, women have a lot more gallbladder removal than men. And they used to talk about the 5 Fs, and none of them are flattering. The fat, fertile, flatulent female with gallbladder removal. But how do all those things tie together into female physiology and vulnerability to the gallbladder?
Yeah, I think it really increases your toxicity load, right?
Yep.
It increases your imbalance of hormones. We're talking about sex hormones, thyroid hormones, and even cortisol hormones, right?
Yep.
And then goes into what I think people think, oh, it's just I'm aging, resulting in low energy, right? I'm just kind of irritable and grumpy a lot of times, right? I don't sleep very well. And it's so commonplace. Well, all my friends have it. It must be okay.
Yeah. You might want to get a different group of friends. All my friends have a lot of energy. I should have a lot of energy. And
Exactly.
that would be the good group to hang out with.
Right.
So within your practice, what is your most dominant demographic that you treat?
It's probably women. It's getting younger. I'd say it used to be maybe average of 50s because they're kind of getting into menopause. And now it's getting even younger. Now I'm getting probably late 30s to maybe 40. I think for a couple of reasons. They're seeing symptoms earlier, but they're also much more aware. They're tuning in a little bit more. They're asking more questions.
Yeah, those are 2 great things. Now, I think they're both accurate. I think that each passing generation that we've seen over the last handful of generations has been less healthy than the previous, and are you seeing that as well?
Yes, definitely. I read a very disturbing article, but I mean, our health is not improving, right? We have more information, we have more seminars, and some is so much stuff out there, right? But it's not helping us. Cancer rates are skyrocketing, especially in younger people. Our genetics haven't changed. So what in the world's going on?
Well, I'm gonna ask you that question just as your insights. What's your take on it? You're a good practitioner, you've been looking at people for a long, long time. What do you think is going on?
I think one of my theories is what I'm feeling within my heart and my soul is that we're looking outside of ourselves for all our answers because we're always being marketed to. Well, this looks good. Well, this supplement. I can't tell you how many people come in with bags of like 30, 40 supplements. I get the concept. Oh, this looks good. I'm going to try this. But is it really serving you? Because at the end of the day, we're so disconnected from ourselves, from our wholeness. There's a huge piece there that's laying untapped.
I often see those kind of cases as well, and I'll ask people, "What are you eating?" Oh my gosh. And you come to realize, did this practitioner who was trying to supplement everything realize that you were putting nothing of value in anything you were taking a bite of over the course of a week? So a supplement should be a supplement. It is not a replacement and will not replace a good diet.
Exactly.
So, what type of dietary guidelines do you recommend for your patients? Is there a generality that we could put in there?
Well, great question. I've kind of changed that too over the years. I think because we're all such busy people, you know? So really getting people to cook is like putting a knife in their heart. They just can't do. I can just tell them talking about it, it's just completely I can't do that. So I learned there's a lot of good home delivery foods that are pretty healthy, the Mediterranean diets, those kinds of things you can do. So I mean, so just eat some protein, small amount of protein and more fruits and vegetables. Just make it simple. One of the other fun things I started doing is asking people to take a supplement fast. Once they learn how many supplements they take, I'm like, "Have you thought about taking a supplement fast, like, for a week?" Like, "Oh my gosh, you thought they were just gonna go crazy." And like, "What if I can't do it?" I said, "Well, obviously barring prescriptions, I'm just talking supplements, do it for a week." So the people that did it were amazed, like, "You know what? That was really helpful for me. I realized that's something that I thought I really needed. I didn't need it as much as I thought I did." Now they're helpful, but I just kinda helped to form that detachment from that.
Yeah, again, it wants to be a supplement, not the main source of nutrition
Those
for each individual. So, your demographic is getting younger. Do you see any children like attention deficit disorder or anything like that?
No, I really stay primarily adult.
Okay. And so, are you seeing things like infertility, endometriosis, fibrocystic breast, things like that?
Yes, lots more of that, and such young. Even my niece, she's only 22, she's already got the endometriosis kind of scenario going, and it's so much younger. One of the tests, the way we do, I'm looking at the estrogen metabolism that's going on, and it's becoming now, my question, to be fair, is that's not something that we used to test, right? Like, in my age group, we didn't test it, so I can't say it's more prevalent. We're just testing and finding it more, so that's might be debatable.
I think that the decline in nutrition, the decline in physical activity, and the increase in stress maybe increases it a bit. But you're right. I mean, we have 11. That's what estrogen testing has taught us. We have 11 different liver enzymes that are responsible for starting the process of estrogen clearance. And then phase two is glucuronous acid, sulfate, and methyl. And we first learned about this a couple decades ago, and most people still don't know about it. So, way to go being way ahead of the curve. And what type of test do you like to run to get that type of information?
Well, there's so many different kind of estrogen metabolite testing out there. I guess I don't really want to sell a certain lab, but there's
No.
there's some good labs out there. Then you can end up rated.
Estrogen panel, bottom line.
Yes, exactly. Check all the metabolites. You can do it through urine. Usually, great labs out there to tell you everything that you want to know. So leaves the guess takes the guessing out of it.
Good. And what about overall genetic tests? Have you played with that goal?
I have played with that. You know what? To be brutally honest with you, I don't do as much of it as I used to be involved because I find people come into the office with X number of dollars. Now there are some people that, have unlimited, but most people have X dollars. And I think where am I going to get the most information to start to see a shift in their health? And once they feel better, then I can expand into those things. But if they don't feel any better from our treatment, they're not going to come back.
So let's say I'm 35 years old. I have endometriosis and Hashimoto's. You see that every other day, right? It seems sadly. So what's our workup there?
Well, the workup involves obviously blood work, beyond the traditional. I'd love to see all their hormones, obviously, a cortisol panel, inflammation, right? Inflammation is such a huge issue. So I love to see that. The blood sugar markers, the hemoglobin A1C, right? Your ferritin markers, all those kind of things in the blood. Then I got to see my cortisol panel. I just said, but the guts, I got to do my poop test. You would like to do it, but I got to see the poop test. What microbes are we dealing with? What kind of state of dysbiosis are we looking at? What's your diet like? Are you sleeping? What are you doing for exercise? What are you thinking? Right? What's your stress like? So all of these things. And one thing I like to do is with my new clients, I used to gift people a little book by Louise Hay called Mirror Work. So during the time we were waiting for the labs to come back, I said, here, this is my gift. Please start reading this and doing the affirmations. Well, basically the premise was learning self-compassion. Looking yourself in the mirror and saying, I love you. That's really hard to do. So opening that door, laying that seed for learning to kind of love yourself is also a huge piece to healing.
Well, in Louise Hay, I mean, she had battled a life-threatening circumstance, turned it around, and then created Hay House to bring in top authors like Joe Dispenza that you mentioned.
Right.
So are you a big fan of affirmations for yourself personally?
I do some. I've kind of shifted more towards intentions and emotions, elevated emotions. I like affirmations. They kind of confirm, but through some of Joe Dispenza's work, I've realized I can say something, but unless I feel what I'm saying, it has less of an impact. And that's harder to do, but much more rewarding. It just takes a lot of practice.
They would talk about affirmations as a way of prime the mind, but one of my mentors talked about feelingizations, which is essentially what you're just saying. If you can feel it, you bring every fiber of your being into the game.
Exactly. And that takes some practice because it makes you realize we sabotage ourselves every day with our thought patterns that are old that we just bring into our life every day. So having an awareness of those sabotaging patterns can be very revealing to,
How would you want to identify those? What do you recommend? If someone knows they're not going where they need to, they're self-sabotaging, but they just can't put their finger on it or learn how to break the pattern. What do they do?
well, one of the fun things I like to do is I'm going to promote this. Again, I just enjoy the program. It was Shirzad Shamin is positive intelligence. And he just revamped his whole program. And I got to tell you, I love it. It's all about learning more about yourself and how I'm a controller and a stickler. I like things a certain way. So I'm learning to identify, oh, I'm feeling that coming on again. So one of my quick tools I've learned is asking myself, do I really have to have it my way in work or play? And if I don't, I'll put it in 80% bucket. But 10% of the time, things probably have to be a certain way. So it's one way that I'm acknowledging my own control stickler pattern and starting to kind of let it go in the world. So it's actually a lot of fun.
You know what? We all have to find our path and where we learn our next free point, right? And like you said, it's not out there, it's in here. Dr. Jenny, I'm looking at my timer. I can't believe we've been on 29 minutes. 30 minutes is the magic sweet spot.
Okay.
So what message do you want to wrap up with for our audience today?
Wow. Well, just know your body's self-healing. You're extraordinary beings. So take maybe your own challenges and look within to your very hearts and just ask yourself questions. What do I need to do? What do I need to say? But knowing that the answers are all right there. And there's so many amazing people to help you. Again, we need all the tools. You can use your IV therapies, your supplements, your diet, but use it all together. Don't overly focus on just one thing.
I think that's absolutely brilliant. And you know what? We're going to finish at perfect timing. And I know you need to break away. So God bless you and your beautiful family. And as always,
You too. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. I'm Dr. Bob Rakowski, absolutely knowing that we can all be happy, healthy, and successful. So happy, beautiful day, and God bless.